Hello and good morning, and welcome to God's Economy, your intersection between your faith, your finance, and your focus. My name is Munyumba, and I'm your host of this show. So, on today's show, we are continuing from the conversations that we've been talking about of the make money skill, and that has to do with sharpening your axe and also diversifying. Today, we're going to be talking about diversifying your sharpened axes. In other words, how many of them should you have? How many of them should you juggle? And how should you diversify your axes? But remember that we've all been underpinning this on a very important Bible verse about the importance of having a sharp axe rather than having a dull axe. And that was Ecclesiastes 10:10, which said, if the axe is dull, a lot of strength needs to be used. But a sharp axe, but so sharpen the axe. And skill brings success. So that is something that you want to really bring to the table today in this conversation about making sure you utilize a sharp axe. Now, today's conversation, we're going to cover a few things. One, should you be diversifying the amount of axes you should? Um, or what are the dangers, you rather say, in diversification or going into various areas? Because a lot has been held about people who are successful being able to do many things. And maybe what may be the fallacies, or maybe what may be the support in all of that. The second thing we want to try and look at is for those that do branch out and to exhibit new things and start to evolve in the sharpened axe. Exactly how does this process work, and what is actually good for them? How have they done this? And we've seen, yes, there are various ways. We always like to accept that there are various ways to do things, but we always like to try and look at what are some of the rules that you should be able to look at, and what are some of the mechanisms and principles behind it. And finally, we'll try and give you a path by which you can try and look at this in your journey when you are trying to develop a series of sharpened axes that give you the ability to generate an income and that give you the ability to actually make a living for yourself, build wealth, and to be able to support society and better society through that wealth building as well. Remember that the purpose of wealth building and income generation is not for lifestyle living, but it is for having an impact. Because even the book of Deuteronomy says it is God who gives you wealth. Okay, it is God who gives you the ability. Do not forget God, for He is the one that gives you the ability to get to create wealth. Okay, so, one of the first things I have been talking about was a book called Be So Good They Cannot Ignore You. And that kind of helps us in this journey for how to obtain the sharpened axe. And for those of you who maybe need a recall on this, just remember, as I said, if the axe is dull and its edges aren't sharpened, more strength is needed, but skill will bring success. This is something you always want to remember. And as a recap from our last session, we talked about was that sharpening your axe means becoming more skilled to achieve mastery in a field. And why do you do it? Because mastery gives you more profitability, because you have lower marketing costs and you have higher prices. Once again, sorry about that. And we talked about 4 stages, and there are 4 stages to getting mastery, but you have to get through about 10,000 hours in order to get there. We talked about the fact that, yes, you must focus on this areas, but we talked about establishing an axe which has a mission. An axe needs a tree to chop down. Otherwise, it's sharpened for what? So the question is, Jesus's axe was for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. That was his tree. So the axe is also dependent. How sharp it is and how it's shaped is dependent on the tree it has to cut down, even the size of the axe. We talked about the fact that other people will sharpen you, that there's power in having mentors and collaborations. And we're going to get back to this point about how the expansion process of your axes work. We also talked about how continuous practice adds and builds into your wealth, and how in Proverbs 13 we talk about trying to get rich quick. It often disappears quickly, but work grows. Work done over time grows, and how the slow time works. We talked about being technically deep in one area. and how in the book of Luke, when Jesus told them, cast your net into the deep waters, that actually now gave us a hint as to the fact that depth is more important than trying to go wide all the time. And I gave you the example of Jack Welch and Jeff Immelt, who talked to you, who showed you that General Electric went through a time of technical depth, and it went through extreme diversification. And unfortunately, General Electric was then swallowed by the extreme diversification, where they abandoned a lot of their technical depth. And unfortunately, that was their undoing. That was a lot of their undoing during that period. And we talked about the 9 steps to mastery that Booker T. Washington advises in his book, The Future of the American Negro, that helps you get to that point of becoming a sharp axe. So let's say you have developed a sharp axe, okay? And now it's time to expand it. You're thinking, well, here's one sharp axe, but what I've seen with the people who are successful is that they are always expanded. They seem to always have multiple sharp axes, and that is something that you do have to try and focus on. And one of the things you want to try and look at when it comes to sharpening your axe is you must be careful to always deliberately do and not to dabble. Be deliberate, not dabbling. Dabbling is a very dangerous thing, if not for the purpose of if it doesn't have an intention to it. And one of the things a lot of people do when they try to cross career lines is they're either running away from something where they have no leverage and no capabilities, and they unfortunately are not able to negotiate or do anything or have any value or negotiating space in there. So one of the things you want to be able to look at whenever you're looking at crossing career capital, career lines, is making sure you are able to take a lot of the leverage that you built with you. So with your career or with the skill that you have in it also built up a social network. You have in it also built up a name and a reputation. So you've built up a know-who. You've also built up a know-how. You're very good at it. Therefore, people come to you and it's needed in society. So you've built up this know-how. You understand it deeply. So you've built up a know-why. So you're very energetic as to how to deliver this service. So because you understand a know-who, a know-how, and a know-why, you want to ask yourself, where can I take this so that I can either learn more things or do more things or be able to expand the portfolio of things that I'm very, very good at? Because remember, you get paid for being very, very good at things. So here's a simple conversation that this man, Cal Newport, was having when he was talking about his book about crossing career lines and the dangers of overdoing it and also maybe doing it within a spectrum. And I want to give you some examples of how we can talk about this in your make money skill.
Sort of a metaphor helps you understand this type of decisions. So I tell a story in my book about a marketing executive, exactly your example here, except for instead of a beekeeper, she quit and did a 4-month or 4-week actually yoga instruction course to become a yoga instructor in the New York area. And by the end of that first year, she was on track for making something like $15,000, which supposedly in the New York area doesn't go as far as you might like it to be. Career capital helps you understand what was flawed about that move. She had a huge amount of capital in marketing. She had 0 capital in yoga. So by jumping to a 4-week instructional course, she gave herself just a little bit of career capital, not very much at all. So she shouldn't expect to be able to gain much great traits in her life right away because she doesn't have much capital there. So when you think about things like that, it helps temper the impulse to try to start over or do something from scratch. Because if you believe that it's building up capital and leveraging it is what makes you love your work, not the matching problem, I'm more meant for this job than that, you'll be much less likely to jump into something completely new because you're actually retarding your progress at having more sort of control and leverage. So I think this metaphor of career capital helps you assess whether a change you're making is I'm bringing my capital with me, but I'm bringing it into a new market within my field that it's going to have some impact, versus I'm leaving my capital on the table and doing something completely new. It allows you to have those nuances that without the metaphor can get sort of confused. If you're building capital in technology, to expose yourself to lots of things is actually a great way to find potential opportunities, asymmetries in the market, some place where you can really make a move like Steve Jobs did. But to be at Google and to also be exploring theater and to also be exploring filmmaking and also be exploring beekeeping, well, you're crossing strong career capital division lines. They're completely unrelated. And then you run the risk of slowing down your acquisition of capital in any particular. So I always understand the sort of hybrid approach that you have a general field in which you're building capital. By doing exposure within there, you're actually gaining more knowledge, more expertise can actually help you build and apply it. So I think that's where that advice is valuable.
Okay, so he was also addressing a couple of questions in there, and one of them was the old saying, try many things, do many things. And he was trying to tell people that, you really want to know where you've built leverage. And what you don't want to do is leave your leverage on the table and walk away with it. Leave it on the table and forget about it. That's what you want to be extremely careful about, because that leverage is what's going to allow you progress. Now, when God made us in Genesis 1:28, God says, he says, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and rule over it. So it didn't mean for you to sit in one place doing just specifically one thing with no diversification to it. He understands your need to explore, but there is a natural progression path. So in the first thing that you want to try and look at is something called the halo effect, because doors will start to open when you are very good at things. That is something you have to understand. Your excellence in things opens many doors to you. And that is what the Bible has said many a time. It said, for a man's gift will make room for him and bring him before greatness. So there are two ways that you are going to be able to diversify here. Your gift, which is now going to become your skill, will do two specific things for you that will expand you and that will grow you. One, it'll open new opportunities for you because of something called the halo effect. When a person is very good at something, people assume they're very good at everything. If you're at school and somebody was a very good math student, it was assumed they were generally a very good student in many subjects, and you'd be shocked the moment they failed something. So the assumption of being good or being excellent in something does allow you to does give you this view that you can be excellent in adjacent areas. So a person's skill opening doors for them opens opportunities in a place where their brand will be trusted to be able to practice in other things. So he talked about exposing yourself in the field of technology. That if you're very good at technology, you will be able to now tap into other areas where technology is applicable. In fact, what I do advise as many people as possible is to diversify the applications of your skill, and you will find that. You will find that the applications of your skill will take you into new territories. You will find that the needs of customers, say you're running a business, customers will find that if you're good at making juice, they'll ask you, can you supply me water? They'll actually ask for other things. Customers who come to me, for example, and say, you'll be very good at bonds and financial analysis. Are you able to help me in stock markets? Are you able to help me in unit trust? And maybe those are areas where I have built up knowledge capital, where I can now support them. But being good in a specific area gives people the confidence to open up doors to you in various other areas. Being very good in specific areas of your job opens up doors to opportunities where you can exercise your skill and exercise a new skill, or at least try it out in a different project. So when you are excellent, one of the things that happens to you is you are trusted. That is what excellence does to you. It gives you a sense of trust amongst other people and naturally opens doors for you. So remember that your gift, being excellent, not just having a gift, working hard at it, deliberately putting in hours upon hours, thousands of hours of practice to work on the weaknesses and make sure you sharpen your axe in those areas. Being deliberately good about that is actually what is going to open you up to many new opportunities. Whether it's from your customer base, whether it's from your work, even certain partners, people will open you up to things. In fact, what also happens to people who are very good at things is that they're often called for collaborations, which exposes them to new things. So you are often taken into new areas. Being good at music and being good at rap music, for example, exposed Jay Z to the rock and roll audience. And I know this is secular examples, but it's stuff that you probably can understand. And that is what exposure does through a Linkin Park collaboration. Being very good at certain things can allow you collaborative opportunities with people, and therefore you sometimes even have transfers of skills. So the first things that they'll do is that you will get exposed to new opportunities, which will then flex maybe different muscles in different times. And you're going to be able to discover a bit more about this skill. You'll be able to, because you're confident in it, you'll be comfortable learning extensions to it and therefore expanding its capabilities and therefore expanding it into new territories naturally. Okay. I think what most people need to understand is there is a natural progress to people who are very good at something, seemingly becoming very good at many things. Okay. So that is one of the things that you want to try and do. You want to try and expand your battalion of axes along the natural exposure of new opportunities that it will give you. Okay, because that is what being gifted, skilled, and practiced and diligent will actually do for you. The second thing you want to try and focus your attention on when it comes to that Bible verse where it talks about being in the presence of greatness is two things. Your gift that you're very good at will actually put you in the presence of very great people who you now become exposed to. So you first become exposed to new opportunities, but you also become exposed to new people who are great in other things, and they will be able to guide you, teach you, and show you things you have never seen before, and they will open your mind up. See, one of the things you have to understand is that greatness likes being around greatness. It doesn't have to be in the same career, but they just like being around great people. Being great allows you to walk into certain doors. Being great allows you to go to certain dinners and events. And at those events, you meet people of prominence or people of excellence in their field. That is what your greatness does. And now you've got access to these people. Now you've got phone calls with these people where you can bounce ideas off of them. I'm going to give you a simple example. A while ago, I watched the documentary of Magic Johnson, where he chronicled his career and obviously the tough things he went through and his upbringing. Magic Johnson became a phenomenal basketball player, one of the greats in the history of the game of basketball. But how did Magic Johnson make the transition from a basketball player to an entrepreneur? That's a very strong leap. What happened? Magic Johnson had an agent who ran one of the top talent agencies in the country, and he was actually signed to that agent. And Magic Johnson had exposure to one of the top businessmen in the field of sports. So, what Magic Johnson did, which many people don't do, especially when they elevate, is they're not aware to new learning opportunities. Because if you want to grow, the growth mindset starts with the learning mindset. The first pillar of growth is learning. Because anything new that you want to expand and extend to yourself must first be learned before it can be practiced and then before it can be taken into the market. So, what did Magic Johnson do? He leveraged the celebrity he had and the relationship he had with his agent and requested from his agent, can I copy at your shop, at your business? Can I come to your agency? Can I shadow you? Can I take notes? He said, I will photocopy things for you. He humbled himself. Okay. and accepted that in order to learn from this man, the agent rejected at the beginning and said, I don't want some superstar walking around my agency, ogling and all sorts of things. He said, I'll come in on weekends when it's quiet. Just show me how a business is run. And in that exposure to a great agent, he also had exposure to a great businessman. And from that agent, he learned business principles just by shadowing him bit by bit. And there's an importance to being in the sight of greatness in areas. It teaches you what skills you need to sharpen, what things you need to hone. So I'm going to show you another video from Cal Newport where he talks about the importance of mentorship, especially in those who become stars in their field.
Capital approach the work is understanding where to build capital. So something I noticed that caught my attention when I studied people who had seemed to apply this philosophy is that they tended to be people who either by design or happenstance had had exposure to stars in their field or otherwise people in their field whose current status really resonated with them. So they're rarely flying blind, right? They have some sense of, in my field, this person sort of represents where I'd like to get, and now I can sort of understand what was the skill that got him there. What does he do that other people don't do? Now, for a lot of the people I studied, this was just happenstance. It's not a surprise why often you'll find someone successful in a field has parents in that field, right? That means they have this expert level knowledge of what capital to build. But I posit that once you understand that, you can go out deliberately and try to find this information. So when you're in a particular field, you can say, who within Google, for example, represents where I would like to be with my career. You can actually systematically go and try to understand what do they do well that other people don't that's given them that sort of control.
So that example, it does explain to you that this is the importance of being in the presence of greatness. Now, a lot of people who are great at what they do, unfortunately carry with them a pride which hinders their humility to learn. Okay. And it took Magic Johnson that ability to actually now humble himself and accept that, yes, I'm a great basketball player, but I'm going to need to become a great business person. And how can I utilize this name, Magic Johnson, to get me a learning opportunity to become a great business person? And during his time, he was playing basketball, by the way, at this time. He didn't quit. He was playing basketball, and this was his agent. And he went to that agent and said, on the weekends, or on other times while everybody's drinking and partying and doing all sorts of things, can Magic Johnson come and shadow you around and learn? And that exposure to a star in the world of business allowed Magic Johnson to understand business principles that could then allow him to leverage his name in other areas where he could now negotiate supply chain deals, where you could now negotiate field deals, where you could use some of the financial capital that he had to then diversify into other areas. So your name capital can expose you to many other things. It can expose you to many other people. It can open you up to various people. So don't be blind, especially when you become very good at something, to the learning opportunities around you because of the new people that you're meeting. That is an opportunity to also expand yourself, to expand your knowledge. Okay. Some of the areas, yes, you may not be able to cross over into, but that exposure to these people gives you much deeper insight into terrains you may need to go into, especially those ones who have some sort of connection directly with you. It was becoming a phenomenal rapper that allowed Eminem to get exposure to Dr. Dre. It was being a phenomenal military man that allowed Joshua to get direct exposure to Moses. It starts with the Amalekite battle where Moses sees Joshua and realizes this. So I'm just giving you an example that a lot of these proteges, some of them were just very good at something. They took on another person who really started to work with them and sharpen them in another area where they may have not seen. And now all of a sudden they're able to splinter it off. Being a very good stock market analyst and a very good asset analyst allowed me to now get a position in a pension company who needed that. And it allowed me into the presence of a gentleman who was actually one of the country's most experienced pension practitioners. And that allowed me to learn from him. the things that I needed to know about retirement planning, about the laws, about the ecosystem, about the system, about how it's governed, how it works, the history of it. I learned history of things that happened in Zambia, specifically in the pension market, by sitting down reporting to this man regularly. That sharpened me to the point where I could now make the transition to not only being an analyst in an area, but also being a financial advisor and helping build people up in certain savings tools, and also being able to build plans for people, so that I'm not only speaking to the assets and the analytics and all this technical gobbledygook that sometimes scares people, but also bringing it down to the person and what they need. They need to save for retirement. They need to save for their children's education. They need to do all of these things. But then I was able to now marry the two. And this expanded my horizon of going from a junior analyst to a senior analyst into an analyst and advisor, which I'm able to now try and work with. Being excellent in my field has exposed me to media. Okay. Being very good in my field exposed me to one of the first business radio stations in this country, which I'm on right now. And I've been there for 5 years, and exposed me to people who are very good in the property space, people like Mr. Fumbeshi, people like Mrs. Fumbeshi, who has built in the media space. It has exposed me to these people. And now I've started to sharpen and hone my skills in media and presentation. Okay, this didn't just come from nowhere. They gave me room to practice. They guided me in certain areas. They've talked me through certain things. They've helped me understand some of the media supply chains. These are things you need to understand. Okay, so I've been exposed by being good in certain areas. People have then felt the need to either collaborate with me, hire me, or work with me in certain areas. And what that has done is that they've also guided me through new things and new skills and new applications of my skills. So, because of being great at something, it puts you in the presence of other people who are great at things and gives you the opportunity. So, the exposure to greatness plus the humility to learn allows you. Now, I'm not saying I was perfectly humble in these areas, but I'm telling you that I did take learning opportunities where I could. And that humility to learn and exposure allows you to expand yourself, okay, into other areas. So use the greatness, leverage the greatness that you have in a specific area to then access people of greatness to be able to teach you. And it's through collaborations, through hiring, through strong relationships. That is what usually helps, that value exchange in some way, shape, or form. It always comes by being very good at something. Remember, I started my career just as a very good statistician and mathematician with some knowledge of financial economics. Then I turned into a good market analyst because of my exposure to the people I worked with at the stock market, who showed me. I mean, I worked with one of the premium ladies who built a large quantum of that stock market. It exposed me to agents there. So the relationships that I was able to build. And that is what greatness will do to you. So if you are a great singer and you are called to an award show for bankers, don't just go there and sing. Socialize with those people. They are great bankers in that room, and you need to sharpen yourself in your money management, because maybe that'll help you with your business. Maybe that'll help even just with yourself and your portfolio, because you are in the presence of other greatness. Unfortunately, when we are great, we think of only our greatness, but we're not alive to the other greatness we are in the presence of, so that we can learn what we need to learn in other areas of our lives or in other applications of our sharpened axe. That's one of the things that you want to be aware of as well. And the third thing that you want to try and understand is also through the area of collaboration. In being a sharpened axe, what you do find is that you easily collaborate with others, because greatness likes to work with greatness. Okay, there are levels to this. When you become great at something, other great people want to work with you. If you're a phenomenal accountant in the food supply chain or whatever, in the hospitality business, if you're a very good accountant, then a superstar chef will want to work with you in starting a restaurant. Then you start to have a deeper understanding of the restaurant industry. Okay, then that superstar chef will expose you to recipes. They'll expose you to styles of cooking. They'll start to do this because of the collaboration. And the deeper you collaborate with people, the more intense the transfer of skills and knowledge starts to be. So opportunities for collaboration also start to arise. So that often happens to me. I remember once, and it didn't fall through, but I remember there was a contract that came out once, and it was in the property industry. And a group of guys from the property industry came together and were trying to issue a bid out to try and get that deal. And in that bid, they reached out to me. I think we argued on Facebook, and it was silly. We argued on Facebook regarding I think the property industry, and I talked about it from an analyst perspective. But they respected me as an analyst. This is the level of humility I truly respect about these guys. They respected me as an analyst. And when an opportunity came, they called on me and said, look, man, there's something here, but we need somebody who can actually do the analysis part of it. All of a sudden, now I'm sitting in an area where people who are actually very good in the field of property development are now calling me to come and collaborate with them. And now these are people I can start to follow, learn from, pick up the phone. There are opportunities that can always be leveraged here. And it can, maybe when I need deeper understanding of institute of putting property into portfolios, these are the people now I can lean on. So this is an expansion of territory through areas like collaboration, but it comes from being good at something, because people who are very good in their fields only want to collaborate with people who are excellent in their fields too. Okay? So you must establish a state of excellence, and that will open you up to new areas and new applications. So I want you to really think about the importance of your gift, converting your gift into a skill by educating yourself in that gift, getting mentored in it, getting sharpened in it, by deliberately practicing it, networking around it, realizing what's happening, becoming so deeply knowledgeable in that terrain that people become very comfortable introducing you to new ideas. Great people become very comfortable giving you their time and exposure. Okay. There are various stories you will find about that. But I gave you Magic Johnson as a very good example of a person who made a transition because of the exposure they had, because of a greatness they had. And the same thing can also be said about Michael Jordan, by the way. It is exposure they have because of a greatness they have. So leverage your greatness for new learning opportunities because of the exposure you are going to get. Don't go to awards evenings and just sit there thinking, oh, I'm great, and not think about the people you need to shake hands with and work with. Okay. I've met some of the great entrepreneurs, even of this country, because I'm good at something, and it allowed me to now get into their presence where their greatness could now minister to me in other areas. Okay. And teach me in other areas, and sit down and listen to them. Okay, that is a very important skill that you have to try and leverage as well. Being able to try and learn and soak it in the moments that you get. By the way, moments that many will never get access to because they lack the greatness and they lack the relevance to be in the presence of that person. Because people who are excellent at things have got time limitations, and they've got serious reservations about how many people they can expose themselves to. So be great. It opens doors for you, and those doors are your routes to expansion. But if you just try and jump into areas where you are new, you may survive, but the probabilities will not be great. Okay? But God has already built into your greatness an opportunity to be exposed to other people, to new things, to try new things, and to grow in new areas. So I hope that kind of helps you through this journey, and I hope it kind of helps you see. And I wish you well in this journey of trying to expand yourself. Become excellent, sharpen your axe, expose yourself to new people, and learn from those people. Connect with new people, expose yourself with new opportunities, learn about yourself in those new opportunities, but use your greatness to do that. Do not force yourself into those areas. Use where you are great, because I'll tell you what happens when you are great. You are easily called. And when you are called, you were used, you're worked with, and that's where natural expansion happens. And this is what happens, by the way, to all these great people who seem to be so naturally diversified. They utilize that first axe they had to open many doors for them. And they extended that axe, and they started collaborating in other areas. You'll sit down with many people in their careers, and you'll find that this is a general trend, especially those who look highly diversified. This is a general trend you start to see about how it was their gift that moved them into the various areas they're in, and how it expanded their knowledge and expanded their capabilities. Look at their phone book, who they have access to. You'll see it. And that is what you need to start working on. Yes, start learning how to socialize. It's an important skill, people. because that is now importance of communication and socialization. If you're a hermit in this area, you'll be phenomenal. You'll just be a tool. You'll suffer to be able to now actually expand yourself. So the social skills are what are the things that are also going to help you expand yourself. So you need to really, really work on that. Your learning capabilities to be able to soak in knowledge and understanding from various areas. I've really harped on this point. So to all of you, I wish you a wonderful Sunday and God bless.